today I bring you some gameplay of my favorite generation of Inyu, Sun and Moon. And I say favorite, ADV is probably my favorite, but I love Sun and Moon Inyu as well because this is what got me into Inyu, into the community, and I would not be tier leader without this generation of Inyu. So shout outs to the wonderful TLs we had at the time. Well, one of them was wonderful, the other was an inactive dumbass, but that's beside the point. I'm going to cover some games from Inyu CL that we had for Sun and Moon Inyu. I think I mentioned I was going to look at the Classic playoffs for Inyu, and then I realized we didn't have Sun and Moon in Classic in 2023. So, yeah, that can't happen. So, this is the next best thing. Of course, you've been enjoying the content, subscribe. There's no reason for you not to. We get daily uploads around here, and they're always banging. Whether it's PS Live, whether it's tournament coverage, whether it's just me talking about Pokemon that I think are relevant at the time. Now, our first game, I already know this entire team of asses, and the reason for it is because Eternally has used it. So I also 100% asked Eternally for a team, and he passed through this build. It is a double choice band. This is Calm Mind, and then this is your standard 3 utility mons. Meanwhile, Watashi, they have committed one of the sins of building in this tier, and that is to not use Steelix. You should always use it. I'm kidding, you don't have to. But no Steel type is certainly an interesting angle. I do think the team still compensates for it well enough, because frankly, Golbat plus Toad still kind of covers a lot of what you'd want Elix for, although there is definitely a world where Banded Aerodactyl, or even just Z-move, like Flyinium Z-Arrow, gives this kind of team quite a bit of a headache, because you don't have that Steelix to just fall back on. I mean, at the end of the day, it is the most consistent answer. It is what it is. Not necessary for building, but certainly very helpful. And to sum up this first game, it's not exactly the most interesting of battles, but it is a very good positional game, and goes to show how you don't need to make that walla walla bang bang huge double switch or huge prediction that gets you a random Oko to take over a game. And we'll see what I mean by that by the end of this. So we see Pass versus Victor Bell lead. Immediate U-turn, of course, because why would you bother with the victory? And of course, since we don't see Helmet, we can assume that this is going to be Z-move on the Victory Bell. And then the Golbat comes in because, well, you don't want Golbat going to sleep, so you put the Incin to sleep. Because frankly, Incineroar in this kind of game isn't too necessary to even win. Which I find kind of funny too, because originally I was going to title this video something like the singles metagame where Incineroar is king, and I may still do that. However, if we look at the other games, there's only 2 Incineroar uses, and you'd be hard-pressed to tell me that Incineroar did anything in any of these games. Anyhow. A little Earthquake chip from the Aerodactyl, not doing too much to the size, so we do see that this holds up pretty alright as an Aerodactyl check. And then if Golbat is going to always just be able to respond to this Victor Bell very, very safely since Incin got put to sleep. And really, again, like I said earlier, you're just going to see a ton of this. Early on, Golbat is going to wall this entire team. And I mean, it should be kind of easy to see why, too. Like, right, Golbat checks these 3 already kind of naturally. Not so much this, because knockoff you still don't want to tank, but you're still a check to it. And then with Taunt, like we just saw, you're going to bother to steal it. You're going to be able to bother this as well, because when you taunt this, it can't sap your switch in, and potentially, maybe it can't even like 1v1 your Golbat if maybe, you know, sap stall ends up somehow proving effective. I don't think you're ever 1v1ing Golbat anyway with your Victor Bell without Helmet, but in that world, think about it. But as we're going to see again, is forced to roost here, so Stoys can try and come out, look for a spin. I'm going to let you know right now, these rocks, they're staying up the entire battle. So the Toad comes in, and it comes in on a Scald as well, predicting, of course, the Rotom to try to spin block. The thing is, though, since we see this Toad lose a million speed ties in a row, we can assume this is actually not a speed tie at all, and instead, Watashi's opted for a bit slower of a Seismitoad, whereas the Stoys is probably still running the more standard EV spread to outrun Jolly Incineroar. But the thing is, since this ends up being Refresh Toad last, and slower than the Stoys, Watashi kind of just always stay in versus this Blastoise, and long-term win the exchange. Because since you're slower, you could always reset Rock after a spin, which is better. You could always refresh Toxic just on your own free time, and you could always get the Scald immediately after the Stoys goes for its refresh, meaning you might just immediately reapply a burn. So it's just a favorable outcome for Watashi to stick their turns there, spamming out those moves, because the Stoiz really is just going to slowly get KO'd. There's not really a ton there. Now we see Victory Bell come out versus his Toad. Really, all you're looking for if you're Watashi here is just some more burns where you can get them. It's not overly consequential whether or not you get the burn on the Victory Bell, but it's still a nice thing to have for the long term. As now the Golbat gets Pursuit Trapped, and I mean, yeah, if that happens too many times, it is a little bit scary, especially because this Comfey doesn't really need a lot to go right to win this game. Simeon can tank 1+1 Draining Kiss if it's at full, but I'm not too sure we want to consider that our counterplay, you know? And then Golbat down. I mean, yeah, there are Hidden Power Psychic Comfeys that I think with this amount of chip, well, the chip we had before the Roost happened, would be able to beat the Golbat down, but again, you know, not the best overall. And now we see a Steelix get burned, and slowly but surely, we're actually seeing a world where Golbat will simply win this game. With rocks being kept up, and with how we've seen Watashi able to expertly keep them up even in the face of the spinner. As it's funny I say this, because right here I believe he defogged. Yeah, he did. So, we see though, the rocks are going to go back up later. Like, make no mistake, those rocks are coming back. But we see though, the arrow's going to be on that timer always. Comfey's not breaking Golbat. Victor Bell's not breaking Golbat. Lick's being burned means it's not breaking Golbat. And Stoi's just, it's always answered forever by Seismitoad. There is a world where this Golbat is about to just win this game. And then there's a very good switch in here. You want to lose your Choice Scarf, because now you don't have to care ever about locking into CC. You can just always go for it. And the crit may have mattered, but I mean, first one was 31. You probably KO'd anyway. Now the Aerodactyl will come out here. You can always just switch back into the Toad. Probably even sack the pass if you wanted, but it's nice to have it still as the knockoff switching into the Goro. So once again, we're going to see this very, very fun sequence where Seismitoad is just going to throw Scalds off forever. And if you spin here, a Scald's coming out. If you refresh, a Scald's coming out. If you Scald, I'm back to full HP. So this is a very funny trade here. And like I mentioned too. Because here's the thing too, right? If they're refreshing, then that means they're not spinning. If they're spinning, it means that they're not refreshing a burn, and I'm keeping them from gaining back any lefties. So that's why this trade's always so favorable. And we're going to see once again, okay, they refreshed here. Well, immediately I'm scalding you. And, well, it didn't happen there, but immediately I could have gotten a reburn. So, just very, very nice. And here you see the burn anyway. And now here, Watashi once again just flexing, then he knows exactly what's about to happen. Stays in on the Toxic here. Gets his rocks up. And then on this turn, instead of going immediately into the Rotom, it stays in. Because again, he's slower. He doesn't have to switch. He can dictate this trade a little bit better. So he stays in on the first turn, knowing a spin isn't coming out, and then goes Rotom, because at that point, yeah, the Stoiz has to spam its spin. So, pretty easy trade there. And even if the, what's it called? Even if the Stoiz did end up getting away the hazards, say like the spin was successful, and Toad didn't reset hazards, like, you're not really too worried about anything that's coming out the next turn anyway. Like, Goro doesn't one-shot you, Steelix, Lamau, and Aerodactyl doesn't one-shot you. And if Comfey comes out, it's just free Golbat, and that's, like, always positive for you. Even if the arrow comes out afterwards, it just means you're getting back in the Toad for free to then set the hazard, so you're always chilling. So now the arrow comes out versus the Rotom. You can just sack here. It's pretty free, so stays in on the pursuit and dies. No matter what, it was a sack, but it is what it is. And now here, the arrow is forced to be sacked, because there's really not much sense in preserving it. You're not doing anything anymore, so you get Goro in for free. You can threaten the Whimsy out with the third Bullet Punch, which I'm not even sure one-shots Whimsicott, but presumably it does if Watashi switched. And now the Toad will come back out again, because it's just generally a favorable mon in most of the mons, except this one, which gives Golbat its free entry. And as we talked about, with Arrow now gone, with Stoiz out of the picture, as well, is just a mon that maybe could have thrown off a Scald and bothered this. There's really nothing that is going to deal with Golbat, because the Lix is burned and it's already kind of low. Now, I say that, the Steelix is actually still a surprisingly good deterrent to the Golbat. As we see here with the Roost, this EQ still does 27, so, like, it's still kind of annoying. Like, it's, yeah, you 1v1 this overall, but it's still an annoying trade to take. So, again, throw off the taunt here, because you're just trying to keep rocks off the field. It's not like it really matters, but it gives you the best overall chances of winning, so play the game safe. Now the Toad comes out, and with, all these mons here, these two, they're gone. Toad is always a pretty easy mon. The double into Goro, or not double, just the switch into Goro was very nice, gets rid of the pass. But now Whimsicott gets to come out, pick up another KO, as Lix is chosen to be volunteered as tribute. And now the Goro will come back out, maybe threatening a bullet punch here. But this time Watashi does just stay in. No bullet punch to be had either. And Comfey, of course, cannot win this game. Even a critical hit would not have taken down the Whimsicott. And the Moonblast, bop, 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 dead Comfey. It's insane. This metagame is literally defined by this stupid flower necklace. I don't even know if we got a single Comfey sweep in these battles. Like, I just don't remember. Anyhow, next game. And this game is defined by Snaga's team making me want to rip my hair out from my head. Because, we'll get into it. Anyhow, Seraph's team, I think I've actually built before. Like, I'm almost positive I have come to the same 6 before in the building process, and I just didn't like the team because I didn't like Sceptile's the water resist, so I binned it. But when I built the team, it was something like Life Orb Sceptile, Calm Mind Comfey, of course standard Xatu and Steelix, and you have like Scarf Passimian and SD Variants. And whereas this team from Snaga's, what I would anticipate is the following, of course, especially defensive Rock Steelix, probably physically defensive Slowking, your standard Rapid Spin here. This could be Bandit, it could be Z-Move. This could be offensive guard, because here's the thing too, right? If these are both defensive sets, you've got one mon above 200 speed. That's pretty awful. So, it's pretty reasonable to assume you either have offensive Spikes Garbodor, or you have like Dragon Dance Scrafty. I think a route that works pretty nicely here is DD Scrafty, because then you just have the Banded Arrow with it to break pretty effectively. You could throw Z-Move onto the Slowking, call it a day. And you may look at this and go, wow, this is the worst Comfey game you've ever seen, because there's Garb, Delm, and Lix, and there's really not a great hidden power to give you coverage for all of that. Fire's going to be your best option, because you super effectively hit both of these, and then let's get a decent chip on the Garb. But it's like kind of tough because it's very hard to overwhelm Delmize and the poison. But I think with the Sceptile, you actually end up having a decent shot at doing something. Because Sceptile is going to so commonly draw in, especially in this battle, both the Garb and the Delm. You could pretty easily get rid of Garbodor maybe. And I mean, yeah, if you're HP Fire at that point, then you should be able to win, right? Getting chip on Steelix is not hard. Maybe for this team, it's actually kind of difficult because your only real progress maker with Steelix ends up being, weirdly enough, the Xatu, throwing it out and trying to get Helmet Chip. So maybe it's not the best angle, but at the end of the day, hey man, who cares? So Passimian lead versus Aerodactyl, and immediately we see the first thing that makes me very, very confused. Probably the only thing, but this shocked me because I saw the Rock's arrow, and I was like, why the hell is this the Rocker when there's a Steelix? Incredible tech here, because it works so nicely. That Xatu ain't ever coming. Why the hell would it switch into the Aerodactyl, man? There's a Steelix. Why would this set rocks? So, Aero sets up rocks. I remember watching this game and you'd be like, what? It was really funny. Because now this looking can come out. Doesn't really need to go into Delmize and look for spins, because why would I? I'm not beating Steelix down 1v1 anyway. So you just get the Scald Chip there. Potentially good for Aerodactyl later still. Now Garbodor will always have to check the Sceptile. And we just see this looks like a defensive Garbodor, so in my mind as I'm watching, I'm thinking, okay, Protox, Dual Stab Steelix, and then like DD Scrafty? Those are the thoughts running through my head. As now Delmize will be the choice here, as it gets toxic, but Lumberry Delm, very, very common. An easy spin too. And this team very unlikely to have hazard control too, because the only mon at this point that can remove hazard would be if it's like Defog on Xatu. And I'm not running Defog with Toxic U-Turn. I need Roost as well, and I need an attack. So now Arrow comes in on the U, or not the U, on the Giga. I would have Leaf Storm there personally. I also would have probably stayed in there personally. I don't know. You switch out, you guaranteed lose your Sceptile. I'd rather, me personally, try and make the read that they pursued. Because switching and getting caught by Pursuit is just so... You're put in range of rocks. So now the Sceptile's effectively dead, which is pretty bad. But now the pass can come out. And here we're going to see the Slowking item reveal. Because we don't see anything knocked off. That means it's Z-move Slowking. So now in my head, because I want to pause while we talk about this, just because it's always good to update where you're at with what you think your opponent's team is. So let's talk about it, right? Especially defensive or physically defensive garb. Again, Protox, Dual Stab, Steelix like my only idea there. Standard Delmise. Probably Banded Arrow, because Stealth Rock Pursuit is incredibly exotic. And I don't think you run this combo unless you're banded. Plus, this is revealed Z, so I don't know what the hell else you would be. And then this probably DD Choppleberry. So yeah. So Sceptile. Throwing off a Scald as we see the sack of the... I mean, Slowking throw off a Scald as we see the sack of the Sceptile. Now the Comfey goes for Calm Mind and will immediately switch out, because what was I doing? I can't sweep yet. But you did draw on Steelix, which is still good, because now you're getting a little bit of chip. And, you know, if you're ever going to break that, I do need to actually get some chip here. Scrafty comes in, so you get to U for free, and this can let you bring in the Incineroar. And once again, I mean, you bring in Incin. Why? Because I don't need Incin this game. But also because the knockoff is always coming out. And we see it's actually Z-move Incineroar on this build, which makes sense because there's nothing else that would run Z. It's just kind of rare over Berry Incin sets, so interesting there. Now the Comfey can get a little KO on the King, as instead it's switched out into the Steelix. But again, all this chip is super necessary. You want to try and beat down this team. Well, you've got some chip on Garb. Delm have some chip on, not enough, but you have some. And you've got some chip on Steelix. You got to break these three. Now Scrafty's thrown out, and it's just going to end up sacking itself onto the Xatu here. Good trade by Seraphs there with the Nightshades, because even though you'd probably like to have Xatu still, to throw at the Steelix, it's not necessary. As now the Delmise is going to try and do this funny thing where they spam Synthesis. Unfortunately, pass Knock does just exactly half. And then you get rid of Sludge from Garb. So now this mod's in range, potentially. Unfortunately, got a Pain Split, but it's really low. Maybe if you can get rocks up and keep them, you can maybe KO it with Comfey. Again, it's still contingent, though, on what your Bower is. And admittedly, I probably would have EQ'd anyway instead of rocking up. But I think Rocks was fine. Steelix, though, probably just going to get sacked here to Slowking because you don't want either of these other mons coming in on the Scalds. As Snaga will make the right play here and bring out that Delmise, knowing the Lix is getting sacked. There's not really any reason to let the Rocks stay up, just in case Garbodor is vulnerable to a damage roll. So now you throw out the pass here, you're just going to knock again. As there's an Arrow Sack that can always be made very, very safely. Then you can go into your Slowking afterwards. You're not going to be getting KO'd by these knockoffs anytime soon. And you're just going to end up forcing your opponent to try and win with the Comfey. So there's the Shattered Psyche coming out there. Comfey has to go for Calm Minds here. And it's not Jover, but we're also not Barak. So we do actually, you see the one shot on the Licks. I think it's actually a high roll as well about Mr. River again. And then we see this double switch here, which I thought was really funny. Because I'm going to be honest, this switch, I don't know what the point was. I don't think it doesn't matter in the grand scheme. I just don't know what the point was. It's almost like they wanted to just know what the team was so they could add it to their builder. Because you do see it revealed here, it's HP Fire. I also find it really funny because since it's HP Fire, if Seraph's calm-minded on that switch, I think they maybe could have won. Actually, no, it was still the same winning chance. That is just still a funny switch. They could have won though at the very end too. You just gotta miss the gunk there and then you're toast. But we will see the Demon Necklace just held back. It's really funny that Comfey is currently banned from RU after being in U in Gen 7 and then I think down in PU in Gen 8. Very, very funny fall from grace. And now immediately into another Snaga game. This time versus LPZ. And LPZ's team, I like to believe, is kind of telegraphable, but it's not really. So my thought process if I look at this team is it's like, immediately I think especially defensive on Drud, physically defensive on King. You know, your standard utility bat. And then this is where it gets a little bit difficult to tell. Because this will be Calm Mind. But when you see Toge plus Passimian, there's a couple things it could mean. It could be Scarf Togedemaru and then like Bandit or Z-move Passimian. Or it could be Scarf Passimian and then like Wish Togedemaru or even like Substitute Toxic. There's even some other variations you could throw in there. Where if you want more offensive power on the team, you could be like Offensive Z-move Druddigon is another option. Which would then of course really probably focus you on the Bandit Passimian. You could even just be like generally offensive Drud, and I guess they'll throw the Z move on King, but that's less likely. And then over here, I mean, generally, I would say there's probably a Banded Sneasel, so you have Pursuit Trap, like the consistent Pursuit Trap, and then get some, like, probably Scarf Fox just for speed, but it could even still be double CM, and like, you know, Defog, not Defog Zot, but the Pivot Zot with Helmet, standard, you know, defensive Toad, and then Poison or Steel Valley, one of those two. And from preview, again, we got double Comfey. Surely one of them can win this time, right? But I actually think this team's Comfey is like really, really scary here, because if Hidden Power Ground is all you really need, right? You'll catch both of these. You only really have to hit this one time prior to the sweep attempt. No, probably you're gonna have to predict it to switch in straight up twice, which won't, you know, your opponent won't do. But your Hidden Power does so much to Steel Valley, it doesn't have recovery. Technically, it would be Wish Delphox, but I just don't see it on that build. That's a very offensive team, right? There's really not much reason to run Wish Fox on that kind of build. It doesn't fit the theme. All of that to say, let's watch some Pokemon through some passes led with versus the Hazel. And immediately we see this is the 90 set. Focus Sash, Pickpocket with Counter. Good night, Moon. Goodbye, Golbat. You deserve a good rest. So immediately this team's Comfey is 27 bajillion times better. Has very good odds of winning this game now, as the Druddigon will come in on the U-turn. And since it's Mold Breaker Drud, rocks are always going up there, so Snagga does take that as a turn to throw up some Nightshade chip, and we do see this is confirmed. It's confirmed Z-move Druddigon now. So that's something good to keep in the back of our minds. And this Comfey getting fully paralyzed, just get prepared to see that a lot. But yeah, Valley comes in, does end up taking 5 billion damage from a Hidden Power, and it defogs the rocks away because, yeah, there's LPZ's not risking their Comfey to an outspeeding Steel Valley. It's not happening. So now, Toad, of course, coming in there. Seeing this EQ chip does tell me that is an offensive Seismitoad. Likely the Z-move user as well, because, like we said, probably Scarf Fox. So, Sea Crystal ends up naturally being a good fit on the Toad. As the Drud switches out back into the King. And you really don't need much chip on this Slowking. We even see the knockoff just to confirm that it is Colbur, though we kind of knew that already based on the damage being done. But we're going to see a continuous just spamming of EQ by Snagga. And in here, LPZ gets very, very greedy, stays in, plots up, and it dies to Tectonic Rage. A little unsure of what was going on in his head there, but it is what it is. Now the Fox comes out, goes for a trick here, so we do see it revealed as Scarf Delphox. Thankfully for LPZ, he's got the Druddigon. It can always be brought out. It's also kind of weakened anyway, so you've got incentive to potentially sack it. And you can block the trick. Now the Sneasel comes out. It does 1,000,000 to the Spasimian, which obviously you're going to preserve pass. You don't want to lose another Mon. You're already on the back foot. Toad also getting a very crucial dodge. That means that this Mon is not instead down at like 20% HP. As that a pass can be brought back out. Go for a knock on the not on Spasimian, on his Comfey. And now you hard switch because not risking U-turn. Nope, not happening. As it gets fully paralyzed once again. Here, we're going to still see this Comfey try and do something with Calm Mind. Although every time the Fox comes out, it's going to switch because there's just no reason to risk a trick. Fire Blast Miss does come in. Although unfortunate because if you landed, maybe you two-shot since it's offensive Druddigon. Now the Comfey once again comes out. This time it finally is allowed to do something. That's a little DKS damage here. Still preserving it just in case, but, you know, it's kind of whatever. Because the Comfey now here is going to try and win, and admittedly it could. Admittedly, there are winning chances. You look at how weak this team is. I was thinking when I first watched this, like, you could Hidden Power Ground here if you want to predict a trick again. But it's probably better not to, right? So instead, we still see Snagga throw out Delphox and then double switch into his Comfey, just using his Delphox as, like, a deterrent to LPZ's Comfey staying in, saying, hey, if you stay in here, I'm going to trick you, and you're going to, you know, maybe not be able to win. Unfortunately, here we see a very bad Fire Blast miss, and it leads to a forfeit. A little bit of an unfortunate way for this battle to end. But I do find it pretty impressive how this Comfey basically just said at the end of it, hey, I'm going to win now. Like, this Comfey alone kind of dragged him back from it. And it's mostly just because it forced Snagga to play so reactively. I do think maybe Poison Valley could have been the option instead of Delphox. I think maybe on let me go back here. I think on this turn maybe you can go Poison Valley instead. But there's also the chance that maybe it's Poison Fang and that doesn't kill from 47. Admittedly, I don't know that calc. But maybe he didn't have enough damage on this to KO it. Maybe he as he double switches here, so it's not even like he went for Fire Blast on this turn and missed, right? Maybe he didn't like something about what could switch in. Like maybe he didn't like the Druddigon coming out. I don't know. You could even go Poison Valley, and if you're going to try and just force the Comfey to switch, go Poison Valley and Defog, right? That way you have Sneasel still able to do something later. So maybe that would have been a bit cleaner. But end of the day, the miss kind of sucked. Now we get to our last game, and Watashi is using one of the, like, defining Sun and Moon SM teams. Sun and Moon... I can't speak today. Sun and Moon NU teams is one of, like, the defining structures. Size, Togedemaru, Arrow. And you'll often see the Comfey thrown in here with some spike support. Because Comfey is, like, so great with spikes. Look at all of Comfey's checks. All of them, except, like, Weezing and Golbat, really hate spikes. And in Xatu here, it could be, like, a myriad of things. It could be Delmize as well if you just want the, spin support. A little bit more safe of hazard prevention, but it works either way. And in LPZ's team, one of the least Comfey friendly builds I've ever seen. There's a Weezing, a Delmize, a Toge, and a Delphox. And even have Vaporeon that could potentially keep them alive with Wish. I say potentially, because this technically could be Z Celebrate. Although on preview, that's not something I would ever anticipate, given the structure. I think the Dawn builds end up wanting Wish Vapo pretty badly. You can just also look at this team and still kind of see why Z Celebrate is possible, I guess. Since there is a bit of a lack of overall offensive pressure. Although there's not really. I'm going to be honest, Z Celebrate Vaporeon doesn't make too much sense as I look at this build more. Interesting. One thing I do want to point out, if this Garbodor is T-Spikes, it will solo carry this game. Because this is the issue Weezing builds have, and it's why I don't love Weezing as much as maybe some users do in Sun and Moon NU. You don't absorb T-Spike. It's why Silvally Poison actually gets a little bit of usage as a remover. It's why Silvally Steel even does. Because they're removers that don't care about T-Spike. It's why Stoiz is so good. At least you can run Refresh. Delmize still can compensate a bit with Lumberry, but it's only one time. And it's why you'll often see Delmize always paired up with Garbodor instead. That way you don't have to worry about T-Spike absorbing nearly as much. Or you don't have to worry about T-Spike, period, nearly as much. So that's something to keep an eye on this game, whether it's T-Spike Garb or not, especially in the context of supporting the Comfey. Because if you're able to get the poisons off on Delmize and Delphox, and to a lesser extent even Vaporeon, just to put it on a timer, that could end up being very, very big for Comfey's long-term aspirations. And so we see Toad let off versus the Weezing. Immediate Will-O-Wisp miss. I am never wisping there personally, but it is what it is. Rocks go up, and we see that this is immediately revealed to be an offensive Seismitoad with the Hydro Pumper. And now the Garb's brought out, and we do get it revealed. This is T-Spike. I have to do this to see that T-Spike, because again, it's important. This little guy is very, very crucial. So now we're going to see this Garbodor dictate the entire game, like we said. Since it's T-Spike, since this team kind of just loses to T-Spike, it's going to try to win this game just through having that hazard up. And since we see a poison on this here, and that gets rid of the Lumberry, that's really the important part, it's already really, really, really good for Watashi. Because you'd want this to now have to come in and get poisoned. So if this is not a heal buff Vaporeon, it's not wrapped, it's not like over, but it's not very good either, you know? And now the Weezlings just throw out in 2-shot, so Comfey's in an incredible spot now. You got the poison on Delphox, you got rid of Weezing, and yeah, this spins away the T-Spike for now. It's coming right back up. There's very little you can do to stop that. So Fox is probably going to get poisoned too. It's just a very good game. And now we see this is, like I said, Z Celebrate Vapo. I don't know. It does end up getting a kill here. Xatu is just thrown out as tribute. Yeah, the first one misses, but it's not too big a deal. There will always be a Togedemaru that can come out afterwards. And you might think this flinch that hits right here, a little bit ahead of the game, but I mean, I think that flinch is like the worst thing to ever happen. I gotta keep it a stack. It doesn't. It's bad, but it's not like at this point of the game. It's not the worst thing ever. You would have gotten the kill on this, which is huge. If anything, you know, huge for just revenge killer's sake. There's one less mon that beats your Fox. But Arrow would always come out afterwards in revenge kill or Comfey. Still bad overall because you'd rather KO a Pokemon than not. Though it's not like Vapo was going to win on the spot there. So now we see Fox get a good double in. And since Fox now has been poisoned, this is poisoned. Watashi feels very comfortable just sacrificing Garb. You don't need to think through it anymore. You've got the conditions needed for Comfey to maybe win. And even get the pursuit kill there. And I always see just the... I just appreciate this turn here. Knowing EQ was very likely, you just stay in pursuing. Really all this does is serve to get a little bit more poison chip, if anything, on Dawn. But it is good chip to have. It's not like you need it. But why would I switch if I know they're going to go for EQ? Arrow's pretty redundant at this point anyway. Just sack it. Now it's very funny. Hydro Vortex to try to pick off the Dome. Unfortunately, they do pivot in this and actually get the KO with HP Grass. And this is actually where I would say, or this is where I'd say the miss on Togedemaru ends up now feeling very, very felt. And I'll always talk about it like in the context of the battle at this point when hacks happens. Maybe it's not the biggest deal. Yes, you would have killed the Togedemaru earlier. Arrow would have been forced to kill you afterwards. It just, I can't say that it's like, oh, this changed the whole dynamic of the game because now Togedemaru is alive for this end sequence. Yeah, well, I don't know if this end sequence would have ever come to be had the pump not missed. So that's all I'm getting at there. We'll see the Iron Head here. And we actually do see it revealed as well. This earlier was Zingzap, or not Zingzap, Lightning Rod, which means that it actually is just going to end up losing the sequence to Togedemaru. You see a lot more of these run Iron Barbs nowadays, specifically for these mirror matchups. As you're seeing, it takes twice as much damage basically every turn. And it's just going to end up losing this 1v1 because of it. And Watashi will win. Very, very fun game at the end here. I think it's always just a very good summary of Sun and Moon NU when you see T-Spikes dominate a game like this. There's a reason that they were considered maybe bad-worthy at the time. The good old days. But I hope y'all enjoyed this. Like I said, one of my favorite generations of NU. If I had to recommend any gen to get into, Sun and Moon would be very high on the list. So, hey, you ever have some free time to build or just look over resources? Check out the tier. That's it for me today. I hope y'all enjoyed. I'll see you tomorrow. Peace.